Hello, and welcome to another art video. This time it's a little bit different because instead of doing a sketchbook tour, I'm actually going to sketch a landscape for you. I've got this one here is the one I'm actually going to sketch. It's quite simple. It's a nice country scene from where I live here in North Germany. They're starting to plant crops and get things into the ground, and I don't know, I was struck by its simplicity as well as the nice light, the greens that are coming through, the lovely winter trees in the background. Everything was just perfect. So I thought, you know what, that would make a really, really nice, quick tutorial. I have sped it up and put some music on, just so that you can see what I'm doing. And yeah, it's basically starts out with a gouache palette, nice and dirty gouache palette, as you will see in the beginning of my demonstration. I don't wash my gouache palette. I leave it nice and muted so that I can get all sorts of colours and colour surprises too sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But then I go over the top with coloured pencils, and here's a sort of selection of what I've used: coloured pencils, markers, and fine liners, bits and pieces like that. And this is what I come up with in the end. So it's a really nice way to sketch. It's what I've used in a lot of my sketchbooks, and I have had a few requests for some simple landscapes to show what it is that I do. And yeah, so relax and happy watching. I hope you like it. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and if you would like to see more things like this. And yeah, I shall see you at the end. Right, so please do excuse my very messy gouache palette. Here it is in all its glory. I never wash it. I spray it to wake the gouache up again, and I don't use another palette. This is it. Basically, everything happens in here, and yeah, it works for me. And I find that I quite like the dirtier, muddier style colours that some people say, well, like, I don't like gouache because it's muddy. Well, I like gouache because I can make it muddy, because I like muted colours and I can mix them and do things with them. So, all good. You probably can't see the piece of paper very well, but you will in a minute, trust me. So, first of all, draw a horizon line. I'm using a Caran d'Ache Supra Colour 2 Soft in beige brown. It's a watercolour pencil, and the reason I use that is because I'm using watercolour over the top, so it'll disappear. Right, some sort of a tree line. This is just a nice quick landscape sketch. And I shall include the photo at the end, so do feel free to screenshot it if you would like to use it. Right, so that's basically all we need. A bit of a perspective there. Let's put a building in, since there's one in the picture. There are several in the picture, but keeping it simple. It's country here, so there are country buildings and things like that. Right, get a nice sort of scrubby brush and some fresh water. Excuse my arm. The water's not going to stay fresh for very long. So I'm just going to get some colour. I want water there. And I'd rather the sky wasn't that blue. This sky hasn't got this much texture. I'm just giving it texture because this is how I like to work. So I probably wouldn't paint a completely clear blue sky as a completely clear blue sky. I'd still make sure that it had some sort of texture. Getting some grey in there doesn't bother me at all. That's part of the fun. And the brush I'm using, there goes my nice clean water, honestly. It never lasts. This is a blender mop, which is fine for scrubbing with. Right, now those trees off in the distance, just going to use some quite muddy water, if I'm honest. And then bring that down here. Quite a clear day in my photo. So the spring greens are sort of out. That's a bit wet. Want it much drier than that. And again, introducing some other colours. Just go over the whole lot. Hopefully you can see that, what I'm doing there. It's making sure I'm in shot. At the moment, my only idea is to get the white paper, stop it from being white. Now my photo's actually got a cement path. It's kind of like cement tiles, like you would put on a patio, that they thought would be a good idea. It is quite muddy up that way, so I don't blame them, but I'm going to change it into just a regular dirt path. This is the ugly stage that paintings go through. If we're lucky, we'll get the painting out of the ugly stage again. But for now, what we just need is some texture here and texture through. And when I talk about texture, obviously it's not actual texture, it's texture as in colours. Knock that green back a little bit and keep the brush dry. Don't want that colour at all there, actually. Not even a little bit. So, there we go. Completely obliterated my building, but I do know where it is, so I can get that back. At the moment, it does look like something that a 3-year-old would be rather proud of. Just going to wash my brush off because I want to dry it a bit and get a bit of yellow ochre up the top here, because I don't want that bluey green. I rarely go for these pre-mixed colours. There's always something that needs doing to them. Now, most people would consider this painting to have tipped over the side to where it's actually now muddy. But that's exactly what I wanted, actually. I'm going to use my heat tool, which I use for my card making, just to give it a bit of a dry. Doesn't need to be very dry, just drier than it was, because otherwise the next layer, which is colour pencil, won't work. So finish with gouache, make it lay flat. And get rid of the brush, get rid of that, and bring out some different colours, so we don't need water anymore either. I'm just going to pop the lid on that because I'm very capable of tipping it over. I'm using a mixture of Caran d'Ache colours and Derwent Lightfast. So for the back, actually I'm going to use Derwent Drawing as well, because for the back here, I'm just going to now go in with my coloured pencils. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop some music on and you can see what I'm doing here, and then I'll give you a little bit of a talk through it at the end. So I shall be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. I think that's the finish of that one. And yeah, it's a simple sketch. I could go on and do some other things like glazing to get different greens and so forth, but I prefer a muted palette. And as you saw, I used quite a lot of bits and pieces there. Some of the things I used were acrylic markers in various sizes and shapes and brands. And I used a fine liner. This one's by Faber-Castell. Tombow, of course, love those. Was going to use my Pigma Micron, but I pulled out a 10 instead of 0.1, which is way too big for anything I wanted there. An assortment of coloured pencils as well. Some Derwent Lightfast, some Caran d'Ache, some Derwent Drawing. Just different colours that would go with my sketch. As you will see, I'll put the photo up. As you'll see, it is remarkably different. Sorry about the noise crashing out there. It is remarkably different to the actual photo because I quite often, sometimes I want to paint something that's exactly there. Other times I just want to use it as a general guide, and this was one of those times. So it's a little bit warped. It will flatten out though. But above all, what I was going for was texture. It's a spring day. It's a country field. It's newly sown with, I think, wheat or barley. My husband would correct me there in a second, but it's sown with something. And yeah, I do hope you enjoyed that little sneak peek. And if you would like to see more of this sort of painting in real time with a proper voiceover and me telling you absolutely everything I'm doing, then please do consider joining my Patreon, where you will find all of that and much, much more. But yeah, so stand by for the original picture, and I shall see you next time. Have a good week.